If you're someone who's trying to find a professional tarot reader, how do you evaluate their credentials? How do you know that they're a tarot reader that you can trust, who's actually skilled and talented in their craft? And how do you separate those talented readers from the mediocre ones or the bad ones? Today, I'm going to talk about the 4 levels of credibility when it comes to finding a talented tarot reader. And I'm going to start with the lowest level. So the lowest level of credibility are people who've just picked up a deck. Maybe they've just bought a deck or they've got very little experience reading tarot. You can typically tell that they don't know what they're doing because they always are referencing the guidebook or they're looking up the definitions online, and they just have a hard time putting the reading into a coherent flow. Typically the lowest level of credibility, you can tell the readings aren't smooth, they're not fluid, and they might not have any deeper understanding of the archetypal or esoteric concepts behind tarot. Now, there is intuitive reading, there is psychic reading, that is certainly a thing, but you can't be a very good intuitive or psychic reader without also having the esoteric foundation, the history and the understanding of tarot first. So people that just, grab a deck, they go on TikTok, they press live, and they're just sound like they're making stuff up, it's probably because they are. A good tarot reader can explain to you why they're getting those intuitive hits, why they're getting the answers that they are. Typically, the lowest level of credibility are people that don't know tarot very well. They rely too heavily on the guidebook, and they haven't actually studied the history or the esoteric symbolism or meanings in tarot. These people tend to say that they're like naturally gifted. Anyone who says that, I just kind of like roll my eyes at. Like, we all have talents, we all have gifts, but when it comes to developing a craft or a skill, just like any craft or skill, you have to put in the time and the effort and the intention to perfect it and sophisticate it over time. The second level of credibility, which is, a little bit higher than that, is the majority of readers, so this level 2, are the self-taught tarot readers. And I would say this is the biggest genre of tarot readers are those of us that are self-taught. Now, the reason why this is kind of lower on my scale of credibility is because it's very hard to measure what's self-taught. What does that mean? For some people, they are like, oh yeah, I read the guidebook, I'm self-taught. For other people, they've spent years and years reading books and dedicating themselves to independent study. So there's a huge spectrum of what self-taught means, and it's hard to quantify what the actual knowledge or skill of a tarot reader is when they say that they're self-taught. Have you read just one book, or have you read dozens? Have you, is this something, do you read tarot every single day, or do you read it once every month or once in a blue moon to your friends and family, right? So even though the self-taught readers, like maybe they don't have to rely on the guidebook, maybe their readings are a little bit more crafted, they still are fairly low when it comes to credibility. So if you're someone who's trying to find a professional tarot reader or find someone to teach you tarot, even though there are some really great self-taught readers out there, there's also plenty of mediocre and just downright terrible self-taught readers out there. So it's very hard to just quantify, and it's kind of a gamble when you're trying to figure out the expertise that you're getting. So the next level of credibility, we'll call it level 3, are people who maybe they started out as self-taught and then they reached a wall of their knowledge and experience, and they actually got formal training or mentorship to help expand their perception of tarot. These are people who have completed courses, they've worked with mentors, they've dedicated a certain amount of time to understanding their craft. Typically, a good comprehensive tarot course can take anywhere from 6 months to a year. The tarot courses that I've taken are that long because there's that much information that is involved in tarot reading. It's not something that you can just learn in a weekend. If you take an actual tarot course, they're typically very deep, or at least the courses that I consider worthwhile are very deep, they're very intense, or you work with a mentor who has those years of experience. Now, that level of credibility is certainly higher because then you can actually quantify their experience. You can see that they've demonstrated a commitment to their craft, and they have that foundational esoteric, archetypal knowledge that you need in order to be a tarot reader. So those kinds of readers are definitely higher when it comes to credibility, but they're not the highest level of credibility in the tarot community. So the highest level of credibility, if you're trying to find a skilled, talented, gifted tarot reader, is someone with experience and client relationships. Now, when it comes to reading for your friends and family, that can be a wonderful way to gain experience as a beginner, but it's never going to be the same as reading for a complete stranger and you're charging them money. So the highest level of credibility is people who have, maybe they've completed their courses, they've done their study, they've worked on their craft, and now they actually have a sustainable, profitable, consistent tarot business. They have years and years of experience behind their craft that they can stand by. Those are the highest level of people with experience. Now, when I was trying to find mentors of the highest level of credibility to teach me, to purchase courses from, I was trying to find people who had a resume of an established tarot practice. Like, tell me actually, how many people do you read for a year? Are you reading, once a month, or are you reading every day, Monday through Friday? Tell me, who do you read for? How do you meet your clients? Like, I want to know what your actual experience is as a reader, because the easiest way to spot a good, talented reader is if people buy readings from them repeatedly. I've been to mediocre readers. I've been to a lot of tarot readers, and the ones that I left with kind of like disappointing, that I was like, that was okay, but it wasn't like that great of an experience, I don't go back to them. I don't purchase repeat sessions from them. But the tarot readers that I have gone to, that I found were really talented and gifted, they have repeat clients. They have a clientele base of regular customers that they've built relationships with over time. They have a resume of clients that come back to them. They have that is how you know that someone is a talented reader, is when the service that they offer, the service that they provide, has enough value that people come back for more. So finding someone who's consistent, someone who works with the public, and someone who has a loyal clientele base are the top levels of credibility in terms of the tarot community, if you're trying to find a professional tarot reader. Now, when I was trying to find professional tarot readers that I could emulate or learn from, I wanted people who talked about their experience. And unfortunately, well, this is like another video for another day, but what I would hear a lot is people would talk about how they would read for the public, and they either read in metaphysical shops, which are like spiritual shops, like they sell crystals and incense, maybe they do yoga or something, or they read in cafes, or they read in restaurants and bars, or festivals or events. So these are public situations where they're getting paid and they're interacting with strangers and reading tarot. And I was like, okay, this is what I have to do in order to take my tarot reading to the next level. I have to read for the public. I have to find strangers that I can practice on and grow and develop my skills. And I remember this one guy, he was selling tarot courses, and I was this close to buying his tarot course, like that close, but it was very expensive. I mean, it was thousands of dollars, which, to be fair, if you're going to do a course for 6 months to a year, you know, that's what you would expect to pay. But he said something like, oh yeah, I used to read in pubs and bars, and that's how I gained my experience. And if you're wrong, a drunk person will punch you in the face. Like, he said something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But what I found when I was trying to find experienced tarot readers is a lot of people embellish, like, or just straight up lie about what it's like to read for the public in these situations. And I say this because I actually went out and did it. I have read tarot in metaphysical shops. I have worked in cafes. I have worked at restaurants and bars, and I've done events and festivals. And I can tell you guys that most of the stories that I heard out there were either total lies or total embellishments, or very romanticized experiences of tarot. And in my next video, I don't know when, but definitely in my next video, I want to share with you guys my story, like my real life experiences of what it's like to actually read in a metaphysical shop, or what it's like to actually read in a cafe or bar. Because the romanticized stories that I heard online from so-called professional tarot readers was not my experience at all. Don't get me wrong, they were great learning experiences, humbling experiences of how to work with the public, but it was not anything like I was expecting. It was not what I had been told. And I didn't get the experience that I needed to elevate my skills as a tarot reader from a metaphysical shop, a cafe, a bar, or a festival. That is not what actually pushed my tarot reading into a sustainable practice. You know, for me personally, like, another thing that irks me is when people say, like, oh yeah, I've got like 20 years of tarot experience. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? You know, have you been actually having a profitable, sustainable tarot business for 20 years? Or 20 years ago, were you 12 years old and you had a deck that you threw in your closet? Like, that's what irks me. Like, okay, I got a tarot deck when I was like 14, but from the age of like 14 to 25, I didn't have like clients. I wasn't like taking on professional tarot skills. I was still learning tarot. So when people ask me, how many years have you been doing tarot reading? I don't include those years when I was a teenager, when I was still flipping through the guidebook trying to understand the meanings of tarot. When people ask me how many years have I been doing tarot, I start from when my business started to be sustainable and profitable, which was about 10 years ago. So I've been a professional tarot reader for a decade. And that's when I start my clock of my experience, which is about a decade ago. And I have now grown a loyal clientele base over the years of people that come to me for repeat services. And because I get feedback from my clients and because I see them again and again, I know that the value that I'm offering, that when I give someone a tarot reading, that it has a certain level of value, and I can stand by that value in what I charge, and just my overall confidence as a tarot reader. But that's something that I've only been doing for 10 years. And I'm not even at like the peak of my career yet. I'm not, you know, there's so much more for me to still learn. There's so much more for me to do. I'm still expanding my practice and developing new services. So even though I've been doing this for 10 years, I still don't consider myself like the peak expert, perfect tarot reader out there. I still have a lot to learn and grow as a tarot reader. But that being said, like, if you are someone who's trying to find a professional tarot reader, either because you're looking to purchase a session or you're wanting to figure out how they became successful or learn from them, realize that there's a spectrum of people, and they all have different levels of credibility, from the hobbyist tarot reader who's self-taught, who picks up a deck every once in a while, to a professional who does this to like pay their bills and support their family. There's different levels of experience and training and client relationships when it comes to tarot, and you need to take all of that and put that together when you're trying to find someone that you really trust. Because at the end of the day, credibility takes time, dedication, and most importantly, real world experience. There is a huge gap, and when I say gap, I mean like gap wider than the Grand Canyon between self-taught tarot readers and readers who actually read for the public. It is a very, very different experience to pull cards for yourself versus pulling cards for other people. And the learning curve is steep, and it's very challenging. It takes a lot of skill and nuance to do that, and it's not something that you can just find very easily. So anyway, I, will share with you guys my stories of reading as I stumbled in my journey, but I hope this video was helpful to you. All right, take care.